This is your old pal Dave Alvin, and right now you are listening to Icon Fetch.
Welcome to Icon Fetch, the web's premier music interview show. Now, here's your host, Tony Peters.
Welcome to Icon Fetch. I am Tony Peters. Now, our guest this time, guitarist Gary Lucas, along with vocalist Jann Klose, have partnered together for a brand new album called Stereopticon. Could have held it for so long. 10 songs done the old-fashioned way, live to analog tape. And Gary's got quite the background on his own, working with both the late Captain Beefheart and Jeff Buckley, writing songs with Joan Osborne and collaborating most recently with Steve Kilbey of The Church. He's also readying a new solo record of his own as well, so lots to talk about here. We welcome to the show Gary Lucas. Gary, good to talk to you, man.
Tony, how are you?
Yeah, doing good.
Good.
So a good place to start here. Jann Klose has got like his own career going on, and great vocalist in his own right. How did the two of you get hooked up?
Well, Jann and I met originally a couple of years ago. I was curating a tribute to my partner, the late, great Jeff Buckley, who you may know I co-wrote Grace and Mojo Pin with and wrote a whole bunch of songs. And Jann really struck me as a very singular talent, great voice, although he sings in his own style. In no way could anyone say he's like imitating Jeff,
right,
or anybody. And so we discussed after I heard him, maybe trying to do something in the songwriting department. So eventually we said, okay, let's just meet in the studio and see what happens. Right away we started striking sparks. It was unbelievable. It was like so easy.
Let's drink to you and me and Mary Magdalene. I never want to hear that devil win again.
Now, I noticed that it looked like there was like a series of recording dates over a long period of time. You guys are both busy with other things. Was that kind of the issue of just trying to find time to wrap this whole thing up?
I think so. The fact is, in music these days, unless you have one project that can conquer the universe, which we think this could, don't get me wrong, right?
Right.
But until we get a little more traction, we're sort of compelled to keep our own solo activities going. He's very busy touring, and me also, and, I think diversifying sometimes can be the key of longevity here. There's the music business littered with I hate to use such a grim terminology, but the corpses of artists who just couldn't make a go of it. It's so tough, as you know. So the whole trick is to stay nimble and flexible, and hope that pieces fall together for you as they develop. So that's why it took a while, because we wanted this to be right. We wanted it to be perfect, or as perfect as we could get it when we first released it. So we did it over a couple of years as far as the songwriting, and then we did a couple of recording sessions also spanning a year. And there wasn't a lot of tinkering with it or anything. Once we got the basic songs down, they just sounded right to us, and we said, okay, now we got to make the best representation sonically. And I'm very proud of this record, and I just hope more people get a chance to hear it.
I'm walking, talking, stranger in your town. I'm hustling and bustling, looking for an angel this time around.
Now, when you talk about the recording process, you guys kind of did things old school, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, I've always preferred the warm quality of analog sound. I'm not really a big purist, and of course I do listen to tons of digital recordings and have collected many. I got a very extensive iTunes collection, But I know that when they first introduced the CD, right away my ear could tell a big difference as far as just the sonic spectrum that was being hit, or missed. And I missed a lot of the richness and warmth of the bass tones overall, and that sort of like quality that you get from great vinyl records. So my friend Jack McKeever, who's a really fantastic guy and a singer-songwriter and a recording engineer, he has a studio that's kind of a little well-kept secret in New York called the Maid's Room, and it's in his apartment over on the Lower East Side. And in this apartment, he's got it stocked with amazing vintage 2-inch tape machines and quarter-inch tape machines, a fantastic analog board, 24-track board, a lot of vintage gear vis-a-vis amplifiers and old guitars and keyboards and whatnot. So this is a wonderful place, very comfortable environment to record in. There's a little kitchen off to the side, and I know that Jeff Buckley used to hang out there. He was friends with Jack, and Rufus Wainwright recorded a lot of his first album there. I've done a lot of work there with my band Gods and Monsters, some other projects. So I kind of steered this into that studio when we were looking for a nice place to record. And I love it. I'd go back there in a second.
Nice. Now, when you and Jann collaborate on songwriting, is it something that you guys do separately? I mean, I know Jann's written his own songs, he plays guitar, kind of thing. Or is it something that the two of you are there, like, looking at each other, creating kind of thing?
Well, the fact is we've done a lot of one-on-one writing, which for me is unusual because the way I like to work, and I've achieved the best results in the past, was, this goes back to Jeff Buckley, when I'm collaborating, I like to provide the singer with a finished instrumental, which has all of the guitar riffs and harmonic structure of the song. It's like basically the template musically for the song. Hands it off to that singer and have him or her come up with a melody line and a lyric. I think that if the singer also functions as the lyricist, often you get more authentic results because they're going to be singing something that they can relate to in their lives, let's hope.
Right.
So, in this, the only difference here was I arrived at these sessions with finished instrumentals, and, instead of Jann going and just working off by himself on his parts, which Jeff liked to do, and I trusted Jeff to do that, Jann and I, sitting there kind of would block out sections of the song and try different things, or he would try different things. I'd listen and make comments. And so there was more of a give and take with, eye contact going on here. And, I liked it. It was fun.
Life is but an overture, a passage to the game. Surrender to the mystery, sparks become a flame.
We also decided to bring in Dan Beck, who's my old friend. And Dan is an industry vet who goes back to years ago. I worked at CBS Records. That's another lifetime, but Dan was the head of marketing for Epic, and he was very involved on a hands-on basis with people like Michael Jackson in his career. And he also was a lyricist for folks like Dion, Felix Cavalieri of the Rascals, and Joe Grishecki and the House Rockers. So, I know that Jann had met him and liked him, so I had a little brainstorm here. I said, why don't we invite Dan in on the sessions to be a lyricist on some of these songs, get a fresh lyrical perspective, and also, hopefully he's going to help us, guide us in the project to what it would take to really get traction in the marketplace, because both of us have found a bit of frustration releasing albums that get acclaimed. I mean, I've put out close to 30 albums in my career, and if you went back and looked at the press, they all had spectacular reviews, but more or less the labels putting them out didn't have resources much to promote them, really, at radio or, whatever it was. There's always been some disconnect, usually involving resources.
Right.
So it just was like a bit of a good feeling, a warm feeling that Dan and his knowledge of the music biz and some of the people and players and means of getting music exposed would pay off for us. It'll be fun to see how this progresses this year. And we have another great single called Fair Weather that's about to roll out.
Fair weather follows tomorrow. Cool, come rain or shine. You're my fair weather friend.
So if I ask you about a couple of the tracks, so Secret Wings, that's kind of like the first single from the record.
Sirens and the screaming. Big city wore me down.
Yeah.
You guys had a video for that. It talks about the city and how, on one hand, the hustle and bustle can be exhilarating, but it also can kind of be, suffocating in a way, too.
I think that New York it's a wonderful place, and I've made my home here for almost 40 years, but yes, it has a capacity to wear one down. There's just so much activity, and I think that song paints a realistic picture for a lot of people who are not of the 1%, let us put it,
right,
who are struggling to get by here, who are creative artists and have dreams and visions that they really want to realize more fully and bring to people, but feel stymied or stifled, sometimes, that it reflects basic hunger to escape the madness sometimes, and just bring it back to more, I don't know, a focus that would be more personal and meaningful than to just try and, to me, I'm just reminded a bit of that Stevie Wonder song, "Living for the City."
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
I think that we share it now, come to think of it, there's a similar lyrical concern there.
Right.
And, that's how we feel. We love it here, but at the same time, you don't want to be here all the time, or let's say one needs to leave New York to get a better perspective sometimes to appreciate it.
Sure. No, absolutely. Yeah, so, and there's a lot of diversity on the record, too. You've got some kind of, straight up songs of lust kind of thing, like, what can you tell me about Let No One Come Between Us?
I got a big machine, don't pump no gasoline. You're all the octane that I need. 2 stallions, wild horses, drove by those mystic forces. Come on, let the magic lead.
Yeah, that's basically Dan's lyric, and he had a lot of fun with that, and we enjoy playing it. It's I had this like bluesy progression that I liked, and I use a lot of open tunings, and this one is really down in the gut bucket tuning, drop down to a low D, and I think that just the sway of the whole instrumental suggested a kind of a raunchy lyric.
Right.
So he filled it with double entendres, and I got a big machine and gasoline.
Right.
All the octane that I need. I
right.
think that's good. The performing singer-songwriter stance often does not have a lot of humor in it. I think it should. I think that's the kind of like joy of living. Is able to laugh and assume characters in these songs. There's another song on that record that's called "No One's Talking, Everybody's on the Phone."
Nobody's talking, but everybody's on the phone. Oh, nobody's talking, everybody's on the phone now.
Which is basically a commentary on the phenomenon of people staring into their cell phones.
Yeah.
Constantly on the street and at dinner and a movie. It's become so ubiquitous and kind of ridiculous when you look at it.
Yep.
Doing it, and then you notice you're doing it. Yeah. Okay.
Right. Talking about different kinds of styles and stuff. I really like "Take Your Medicine" because it sounds like something I don't know, almost like maybe from the 20s or something, kind of the chord progression.
Take that medicine. You know it's good for you, but it tastes so bad.
You know, I'm glad you like that, because, in fact, I do have a love of that old-timey, ragtimey guitar sound. I mean, a lot of my acoustic playing is very much of the rootsy folk tradition of America, blues and early music. And I don't know if you know my catalog, but I've done albums. I have a record actually of 30s Chinese pop.
Nice.
That came out of Shanghai. I mean, that's also done in that style because, yeah, a lot of like jazz musicians were working in Shanghai at that point, and we're creating these hybrid musics with Chinese musicians. I have a record out currently of Betty Boop and Popeye music from the cartoons, which I grew up on and loved. And again, it's done in this 30s swing jazz acoustic style. So, yeah, you know, I mean, that one, I was just fooling around with that progression. And yeah, that was one of the ones that came together very quickly for us, and we didn't have to labor over it, and Jann just like was coming up with lyrics that were great on the spot, you know.
Right.
So,
yeah.
That's the closest thing to an improvised number on this record.
Nice. Now, you know, I think the most melodic track on the record is "Well of Loneliness."
Oh, child, I must confess, I'm living in the well of loneliness.
Great.
Even though I think the lyrics are kind of dark, you know, it's
kind of dark. It's sad. It's a bittersweet song. It's I mean, the fact is, in analyzing a lot of my work, I mean, I just do it unconsciously, honestly, but I've thought a lot about what these things mean after the fact. Like, as I'm, you know, Jeff Buckley, Grace, and Mojo Pin. I kind of, you know, have done a lot of thinking about why those songs work for a lot of people, that they kind of press buttons. And I think it is because there's a bittersweet element. And I think that the truth of the matter is, you know, like life is not all one way, you know, up or down. It's like we all have different moments during the days, you know, where, you know, we might be joyful and elated and excited about stuff, and then come crashing down to, you know, more, let's say, sad thoughts. So, you know, that one, I was going, I mean, then musically for, you know, a kind of a wistful but determined rockin' sound with a big guitar riff, you know. I mean, I really concentrated on this record to make sure every song from the kind of hooky standpoint had a really strong, you know, riff driving it. I'm very much into riffs. I've written some good ones, I dare say.
right.
You know, so and Dan, really, that's his lyric. He put that on there, and I thought it worked beautifully because, you know, the way the protagonist in that song is singing, he's trying to, you know, express the futility of the situation he's in, and yet there's a little bit of a hopeful element. That's the bittersweet quality. There's that wistful quality, you know.
Right.
There's just, and the way Jann sings it, it's so beautiful because you can hear the ache in his voice, you know. He really is a great interpreter of other people's lyrics. I mean, and that one is Dan.
Living in the well of loneliness.
So, I mean, let's go back a little bit here. So, you know, you kind of got a big break working with Captain Beefheart. But is it true, like, you pretty much started out as a fan? Is that kind of how it started?
Yes. I mean, I had read about him, like he was on the cover of Rolling Stone, you know. I got one of his albums. Then I saw that he was coming down to play his first show in New York in early 71. I went down with some buddies of mine. I was going to Yale. And we caught the show, and it was like, I just said, if I ever do anything in music, I'm going to play with this guy. And then I met him. They asked me to interview him on the radio. He was coming up to New Haven. We bonded. I hung out with him and his wife and his band when he showed up a couple of days later, and that's how it started. I'd just go chase it, seeing all of his shows, go backstage, and then finally I got the courage to tell him that I played guitar. This was when he was with Zappa. A few years later, I just was shy, and I didn't think I was good enough. And then I just thought, okay, here's my shot. His band is broken up. He's playing with Frank in the interim. I took him out for a ribs dinner in the ghetto of Syracuse after a Zappa show in 1975. I said, hey, if you ever put a band together, I'd like to play guitar. And he was like, you play the guitar, man? Why didn't you tell me? I said, well, I didn't think I was good enough.
Right.
And he was like, well, hey, man, come on up with that guitar. Take the bus, man.
Yep. So let's flash forward here a minute. You mentioned Jeff Buckley several times in the interview here. How did you first get hooked up with Jeff?
Well, I was a big fan of Tim Buckley's. So the producer Hal Wilner, who you may know from, he did a lot of these great tribute albums to people like Sun Ra and Thelonious Monk and Disney. He was like one of the original multi-artist tribute producers. He rang me and he said, I'm going to do a tribute to Tim. I said, I love Tim Buckley. I said, come on down and then listen, I'd like you to collaborate. His son Jeff has come forward and he wants to play. And I was like, I didn't know he had a son. He said, well, neither did we, but he's contacted us and I think you guys would be good together. That's how it started. So I said, sure. So I was packing up after the rehearsal, and this kid who looked like Jeff Buckley, he looked like his father, but with shorter hair. He just came up to me and he started popping his eyes. You're Gary Lucas? I love you, man. I loved your playing with Captain Beefheart, and I read about you in Guitar Player. I'd been profiled there. And I want to work with you, man. I love what you were just playing in there. I said, oh, you saw that? So yeah, I was sitting way in the back in a pew, and it was great. We started, they'd asked me to work up one of his dad's songs called The King's Chain with Jeff. And I handed him a mic. I put the riff down and looped it and played it backwards. They started to sing, and then I was like, oh, man, listen to this. When he finished, I said, man, you are a star. And he was like, really? You think I am? I was like, oh, yeah. So then I just got a flash. I got to work with this guy. But I sent him some music, like I told you I like to work, some instrumentals. And that summer he came back and says, okay, you know that thing called Rise Up to Be? Now it's called Grace. And I got a tape of him sitting on my couch going, go. I start playing, and he goes, there's a moon asking to stay. And I'm like, oh, man. So he had this whole great, vocal and lyric. It was slightly different lyrics. So I said, we got to demo this. So a few days later, I went in the studio with my band and cut the instrumental version. Jeff came down, and he knocked him out of the park. It's like, oh, my God. What did he do? Listen to this. It's spectacular.
So on the first record, Grace, you actually...
I played on it. I co-wrote the first two songs,
right.
Grace and Mojo.
Nice.
And was credited for magical guitarness in the special thanks.
Right.
By Jeff. Yeah. All of this is in my book. I have a book out called Touched by Grace, My Time with Jeff Buckley. It's in English on Jawbone Press. It's also translated into Italian. It's available through Amazon and my website.
So you've got some new projects you're working on. I read something about Steve Kilby of the Church.
Yes, we've written a song, and I hope we do more. I'm working again with Jann on a second. I hope it's a follow-up album to Stereopticon. I have this Betty Boop Fleischerei project out, music from Max Fleischer cartoons, featuring Sarah Stiles, who's a little ball of fire. She's my Betty Boop in olive oil rolled into one. I love it. We show the cartoons. We play the music. I got a great band.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, and then I got a third one coming out next month called Pearly Clouds. It's a trio playing psychedelic world music based on traditional Hungarian folk. I recorded it in Budapest, Hungary last year, It's really good. It's pretty ethereally beautiful. It's in Hungarian. It might limit the audience, but just as music on the ear, it's gorgeous. And
so you've gotten, I mean, from
I never stop.
30s Chinese pop, and you got Hungarian music and Betty Boop.
Look, I mean, that's just me. I'm not going to sit around and wait for one thing or another to propel me to whatever. I mean, it could be that none of these things are ever going to get vastly popular, but I'm determined to just put out music I like and let people discover it. I do the best I can to promote these things. I'm a very hard worker, as anyone who knows me would attest to. I don't stop. I don't sleep a lot. I tour all over the world as much as possible, and I've had to do this all pretty much by myself. So
nice.
I wouldn't prefer to do it any other way.
Right.
It's hard to find people you can trust to do stuff,
right.
So.
Well, and I mean, if you were signed to a major label, they would certainly go, "No way, you're not doing the Hungarian thing. I'm sorry, that's not happening."
I wouldn't do that, but I mean, these major labels are primarily. I understand it's a business, and I want to, make these profitable for all of the people involved. I want it to be win-win, but I think it's a bigger world, and there's a lot more niches out there now than there ever were, and I have fans all over the world.
Nice. You've got a website that people can find out about all the
GaryLucas.com.
GaryLucas.com.
Very easy.
Okay. And I noticed that you guys have got a website up for the LucasClose.com as well. That's
yeah.
The collaboration. So and you and Jann do have some upcoming dates together then, right?
Yes, I know we're playing at the Stephen Talk House on April 30th.
All right. Well, Gary, man, it was good talking to you. Gary Lucas, the new collaboration with vocalist Jann Klose is called Stereopticon, and good luck on it, man.
Thank you very much. All right. Great talking to you, Tony.
You've been listening to Icon Fetch with Tony Peters. Want more great interviews? Head over to iconfetch.com. There, you'll find every interview we've ever done, plus CD reviews, This Day in Music, and a random album of the day. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter. Who is Tony going to interview next? It could be you. Send what you've got to Tony Peters. Icon Fetch, P.O. Box 292134, Dayton, Ohio 45429. Or email Tony at host@iconfetch.com. Until next time, this is Joe Kelly. Have a great day.